Yo, what's up YouTube? Edwin the Comic Jabroni coming at you, and I've got a question for you. Here's a copy of SpiderMan 2099 issue number 1, and here's a copy of SpiderMan 2099 issue number 1. Do you know the difference between these two? Stick around, we're going to talk about it. Yo, so welcome back. Edwin the Comic Jabroni, like I said. And I know in my last what the heck is this variant, I said that this next video we were going to discuss Mark Jeweler variants. But after discussing it with a few friends and thinking about it for a little bit, I decided that we needed to kind of step back. And before we got into Mark Jewelers, we actually needed to talk about the difference between a newsstand copy and a direct edition copy of a comic book. Because Mark Jewelers came out in almost entirely newsstand. So if I started talking about newsstands and you really didn't kind of understand what those were, then this video right here is going to help you break the ice on what is the difference. So a newsstand versus a direct edition comic book is a distinction between the two comic books that I believe all comic collectors should know. So beginning in 1979, two distinguishable types of comic books were sold, and they were sold in two different ways. One was a direct edition through a comic book store, and the other was a newsstand edition that was sold on newsstands, right? Like in grocery stores or gas stations. But like I said, this started in 1979, and these two comics right here are a 90s byproduct. So how can we tell the difference between a newsstand and a direct, dating all the way back from 1979, moving all the way forward to modern times of 2013 when the newsstand died out? Well, let's keep going and dive a little deeper. So the biggest reason behind a direct edition and a newsstand back in 1979 and in through the 80s was the fact that the newsstand editions were able to be sent back to the distributor for a full refund for those grocery stores, those gas stations, wherever it was that had the newsstand that couldn't sell them. And the direct edition copy was bought at a lower price and they weren't returnable. So what did comic stores decide to do? Because they were receiving comics with the newsstand barcode on them. Well, what the distributors and what Marvel decided to do was put a line across their barcode. So if you ever go out and you see one of these comics with the barcode on, but the line across like this one, that right there meant that this was a direct edition sold to the comic book store, but they were non-returnable. So right here, I have an X-Men 129. I have an X-Men 122. As you can see on both of them, they both have the barcode slashed through. So if you ever see these right here are direct editions. Even with the barcode crossed out, it's a direct edition. This only amounted to about 6% of the comic book industry. So when we talk about comics and we talk about low print runs on comics, although these Uncanny X-Men might have been printed in higher numbers, you have to remember that there was a newsstand and there was a direct edition, and the ones with the barcode slashed out made up a smaller print run than the larger print. Starting a few years after that, a lot of the comic book stores told Marvel and told the distributors that these, diagonal lines were pretty ugly and very unsightly. So what did they do? Now you guys are absolutely going to know this next picture, and it is the rectangle with the Spider-Man face on them. Now these are all over the place. I see them all the time, and this is a direct edition copy of Uncanny X-Men 131. Now, on top of that, you still have the newsstand editions, which would be this same copy, but it would have that newsstand barcode like I was showing you with the Spider-Man 2099. Now I'm going to show you one where I have a newsstand, and a direct. That's going to be the Spectacular Spider-Man issue number 90. So as you can see here, I have one with the Spider-Man face on, and then I have another one that has the Newsstand logo. Same exact comic book, but two different types of distribution. One was through the comic book store, like I said, and the other one was a newsstand, because it's a newsstand. If you look at this chart, you'll be able to see that at the very beginning of this, about 5 to 6% of comics were made in the direct edition, right? And then mostly everything else was newsstands being sold at grocery stores and gas stations. In about the 1985, 1986, you could see where the bars are crossed, and there's about a 50-50 split between newsstand and direct. Moving on a couple more years into the 90s, into the 2000s, and in 2013, that's when the newsstand edition died out. About 5% of comics made between 2010 to 2013 are newsstand edition copies. So if you are able to go out there and go find a newsstand of a newer modern book, that book is actually going to be more valuable than a direct edition because of the lower print. And I'm going to show you the difference, because in the 90s, comic book stores decided to tell Marvel and to tell DC that, hey, we want barcodes on our comics too, because it's going to make it easier for us to sell them. So what did Marvel and DC decide to do? They added a barcode that is still a direct edition. And as you can tell right here, it is a longer barcode down here at the bottom. Now, there were still newsstands, like I said, about 5% of copies were newsstands. So those are going to look a little bit different, and that looks like this. That's going to look like this copy of Batman 635 that I have right here. As you could tell, this barcode looks a little bit different than that one. The very end right here has a shorter bar scale than the direct edition does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between two modern day direct edition and a newsstand. So here's Batman 635. That is a newsstand of it. And here is the direct edition of Batman 635. Now, if you take a good look at both of those barcodes, you can tell the difference, where the direct is a little bit longer. Now, the prices are still the same, but it's a little bit different, and it's actually going to be worth more money. If you look both of these books up, the newsstand copy of this is harder to find. You might be able to find maybe one or two on eBay, and it's going to go anywhere between 20 to 30% more than a direct edition. So we spoke about Marvel having the rectangle down in the corner with Spider-Man's face on there, and over the years it kind of changed it up. There's the very famous Hulk 377 where he becomes Professor Hulk, and then after that you would see that image down there. You would see Captain America. Well, DC, they did things their own way. So here is Batman 386. Down here in the bottom, you see a logo of the 50th anniversary of DC. But in other ones that you would see for direct editions, they might have the names of the writers or the artists in there. They would do different things for theirs. So this is Batman 386. And here is the newsstand for Batman 386. As you can tell, there are differences between the two. As far as my knowledge base is concerned, I believe that anything between 1983 to maybe 1987, 1988, since it was a 50-50 split between newsstand and direct, I do not believe that these are actually worth more money. What you want to look for is anything before 1980, and then really anything after about 2000. Now, when we get into slabs, CGC, CBCS, or PGX, there are some differences, right? Because CGC doesn't really talk about one book being a direct or a newsstand, but CBCS does put direct or newsstand on their slabs. So what I have here is Uncanny X-Men 266, first appearance of Gambit. And if you look right up here in the top, it's going to say direct edition. But right next to it, I have New Teen Titans, issue number 2, first appearance of Deathstroke, and this is a newsstand, and up here in the top, it says Newsstand Edition. Now, for some people, that might not matter if it actually says it on the slab. If it doesn't, because if you look at a CGC slab, even though this is a direct edition, it doesn't say it anywhere on there, but I have a few books where it actually does talk about it. So, right here, I've got a CGC slab of Amazing Spider-Man 529, first appearance of the Iron Spider suit. And down on the bottom, you can tell that it is a newsstand. So newsstands for Amazing Spider-Man in this era, 2006, actually went for $1 more. This is a $3.99 comic as opposed to the original direct edition, which was $2.99. And it actually says it up here in the comments, which I'm going to put on the screen right now so you can see it. And it says, first appearance of new Spider-Man costume, newsstand edition exists with $2.99 cover price. So, this is an older slab. I have not gotten this re-slab, but what I have been told is now CGC is actually putting it on these newer slabs for Amazing Spider-Man 529, that it is the dollar difference. Now, back in the day, of course, as a kid, you don't want to spend another $1 to buy a comic book when you can spend $2.99 and save yourself $1. But now, these copies of these books are actually going for more money, guys, and you have to remember that it is all about the print run of a comic. Although the print run might be 100,000, you got to think that the newsstand print run was maybe 10% less of that, so they are rarer to come by. So guys, this was episode 2 of What the Heck Is, and we spoke about newsstand versus direct edition. Now, I know I said in the last video we were going to go over Mark Jewelers, but I had to kind of give you a base of knowledge on what these two were so that we could go forward and talk about Mark Jewelers, because newsstands are going to play a very, very big role in the Mark Jeweler variant. So, what the heck is a newsstand versus a direct edition? One had a barcode, one had Spider-Man's face. Later on, one had a longer barcode, one had a shorter barcode. So I hope you got something out of this, guys. Let me know, is there any other questions that you had about newsstands versus direct? In my opinion, I believe a newsstand is a better book to get if you're a collector. But remember, buy what you want, buy what you like, buy what your money can afford, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is your first time watching one of my videos and you found some of this interesting, hit that subscribe button, guys. I'm dropping comic book stuff all the time. This is only episode 2 of What the Heck Is. We're going to be jumping into Mark Jewelers next time for sure, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm Edwin the Comic Jabroni. Be the best version of yourselves that you can be, and I'll see you next time. Peace. So here is Amazing Spider-Man 529, right? First appearance of the new Spider-Man Iron Armor suit. What the saying?